Three women invited me upstairs, but I never expected what happened next. What started as an ordinary night turned into a whirlwind of secrets, temptation, and choices I could never take back. Would you have gone with them? Drop your answer in the comments before you read on, because this story might just test what you think you know about love, trust, and desire. The party had been loud, bright, and suffocating. Laughter spilled out of champagne glasses, music throbbed against the old walls, and strangers brushed past me as though I were invisible. I had nearly convinced myself to leave when I saw them. They stood at the foot of the grand staircase like something out of a dream or perhaps a warning. Three women, impossibly composed, impossibly beautiful. One wore black silk that shimmered faintly with every movement, her hair falling in soft waves over bare shoulders. Another was dressed in darker satin, almost obsidian, her neckline sharp, her gaze sharper. The third, striking in crimson sequins, seemed to draw every flicker of candlelight toward her, as if the room itself bent to her presence. They didn't speak at first. They simply looked at me long, deliberate, unflinching. Something in that gaze pinned me in place. My pulse quickened as though my body already knew what my mind had yet to process. Nothing about this was ordinary. Finally, the woman in silk broke the silence. Her lips curved into a smile that was both welcoming and dangerous. "Come with us," she said, her voice smooth as honey. I glanced around, expecting someone else to respond. But no, her eyes were fixed on me. The woman in the red dress tilted, her head slightly, her sequins catching the light like sparks. "Upstairs," she added, her tone more command than request. A dozen questions swirled in my head. Why me? What did they want? And why did every instinct scream that if I followed, I would never be the same again? Yet curiosity has a way of drowning out caution. My feet moved almost without permission, carrying me toward the staircase. The crowd blurred behind me, muffled laughter and music fading into the distance as I climbed step by step, their presence close at my back. The hallway upstairs was quieter, shadowed, lined with flickering lamps that cast long shapes against the walls. Every detail, the worn carpet beneath my shoes, the faint scent of roses mixed with something metallic in the air, etched itself into my memory with unnerving clarity. When I turned, they were already there, the three of them standing in a half circle watching me. I felt like a moth caught between flames drawn in, unable to retreat. The woman in silk leaned closer. "Do you always follow strangers?" Her question might have been teasing, but her tone carried weight. My throat tightened. "Not usually," I admitted, "but you don't feel like strangers." A flicker of recognition passed between them, as though I had said exactly what they'd hoped. And in that moment, I understood one thing with certainty. I hadn't been invited upstairs by chance. The room they led me into felt like it belonged to another century. Velvet curtains draped the tall windows, and rows of leather-bound books lined the walls like silent witnesses. A chandelier swayed faintly above us, though no wind touched it. Shadows curled in the corners, and the air carried that same scent of roses and something metallic, like memory and mystery woven together. The woman in red was the first to speak. Her voice was smooth, deliberate, as though every syllable had been rehearsed. "Do you believe in fate?" The question caught me off guard. My lips parted, but before I could form a reply, the one in black silk circled behind me. She moved with the grace of a predator, soft, deliberate, aware of her power. She leaned close enough that I could feel the whisper of her breath against my ear. "Fate doesn't bring people here," she murmured. "Desire does." My chest tightened. I could hear my own heartbeat over the silence, steady but heavy, as though my body was bracing itself for something unknown. The third woman, the one in obsidian satin, stood directly before me, her eyes unreadable, There was something in her gaze that unsettled me, an intensity that bordered on sorrow, as though she carried a weight she could never put down. "We've been waiting for you," she said simply. A chill ran down my spine. "Waiting? For me? You don't even know who I am." Her lips curved, though not into a smile. "We know enough. You're the kind who doesn't run." The words hit me harder than I expected, because they were right. I should have run back down the staircase, back into the noise of the party, back into safety. But every part of me resisted the idea of leaving. It was as though the door I'd stepped through had already locked itself behind me. The woman in red crossed the room, her sequins catching faint glimmers of candlelight. She stopped just a breath away from me, her eyes searching mine. "There are truths hidden in this house," she said softly. "Stories you've never heard, and perhaps parts of yourself you've never dared to see." Her words tangled in my mind like vines. I felt them winding around me, drawing me in. The woman in black silk touched my shoulder lightly, almost reassuringly. "But the question is," she whispered, "do you want to know?" The weight of their stares pressed against me. 3 women, 3 enigmas, each holding back something unspoken. And I realized with a mix of fear and exhilaration that they weren't just asking if I wanted to know their secrets. They were asking if I was ready to surrender my own. Time blurred in that room. I couldn't tell if minutes or hours had passed since I'd stepped inside. The 3 women spoke little, yet their silence was alive with meaning. Every glance exchanged between them felt like a coded language, one I wasn't yet fluent in, but desperately wanted to understand. The one in silk drifted toward the tall bookshelves, trailing her fingers across the spines. She selected a book at random, opening it without looking down. "People think desire is simple," she said, her tone light but edged with something sharper. "They mistake it for hunger, for lust, but true desire, it's knowing you could run and choosing not to." Her words settled heavily inside me. She wasn't just talking about herself, she was talking about me. The woman in obsidian had taken a seat by the fireplace. Though no fire burned, her posture was poised, her chin resting delicately against her hand. She studied me like a puzzle she'd been waiting years to solve. "You think you came here by chance," she said at last. "But tell me, have you ever truly believed in coincidence?" I tried to respond, but the words caught in my throat. Coincidence? No, this didn't feel like that. It felt orchestrated, inevitable. The woman in red remained close, her presence a constant pull. She moved around me slowly, her sequin gown catching every flicker of candlelight. "You're not afraid of us?" she said, not as a question, but as fact. I considered that. Was I afraid? The sensible part of me screamed yes. But beneath that was something deeper, a current pulling me toward them, stronger than fear could anchor me. "I should be," I admitted. "But I'm not." She smiled faintly, and for the first time, I saw something fragile in her expression, a flicker of vulnerability, gone as quickly as it appeared. "Good," she said softly, "because fear keeps most people from seeing the truth." They began asking me questions, not about who I was, but about what I wanted, what I craved when no one else was watching, what I dreamed of but never spoke aloud. Each question cut deeper than the last, stripping away layers I didn't even realize I'd been hiding behind. The room grew warmer, heavier, as though their words themselves were weaving a spell. I felt myself unraveling, not in a way that destroyed me, but in a way that revealed me. At last, the woman in silk closed her book and looked at me directly. "You stand at the edge," she said, "but edges are not meant for standing. They're meant for crossing." And in that moment, I knew. Whatever game they were playing, I was already too far in to turn back. The silence stretched long after her words. I stood there, suspended between the safety of what I had known and the dangerous allure of what waited if I chose to step forward. The woman in red broke the silence at last. Her voice was softer now, stripped of command, carrying something almost tender. "You can leave," she said. "Walk back down those stairs into the noise and the light, and this will be nothing more than a memory that fades with time." Or she paused, letting the word hang like smoke. "You can stay, and everything you know will change." The woman in obsidian rose gracefully from her seat, her eyes never leaving mine. "There is no shame in leaving," she said evenly, "but there is no going back once you choose to stay." Behind me, the door stood ajar, its outline faint in the dim light. The path back to the party, the laughter, the safety, the familiar. World waited just steps away. And yet, when I imagined walking through it, my chest tightened with a sudden ache. It wasn't freedom I saw waiting there. It was emptiness. The woman in silk crossed the room and stopped just a breath away. She raised her hand, hovering near my cheek, but not touching. "Choice defines you," she whispered. "Not fate, not desire, choice." My heart pounded, echoing louder than the silence. Every instinct warred inside me, the rational urging retreat, the reckless urging surrender. But deeper still, something steady whispered that I had already made my decision long before they asked. I looked at them, 3 strangers, 3 enigmas, 3 reflections of something inside myself I hadn't dared to confront. And for the first time, I didn't feel like prey in their presence. I felt chosen. My voice trembled, but held steady. "I'll stay." The words left me like a vow, binding, irreversible. The 3 women exchanged glances, not of triumph, but of relief, as though they had been waiting not to trap me, but to see if I could truly choose. The woman in red stepped closer, her expression softening into something almost luminous. "Then," she said, "your story begins tonight." And just like that, the door behind me seemed to vanish. There was no escape now, but strangely, I didn't want one. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. I chose to stay, and nothing was ever the same again. But tell me, if you had been standing at that staircase, if 3 strangers offered you a choice that could rewrite your life, would you have walked away or stepped inside? Comment below. Your answer might say more than you realize.